Welcome back, everyone. Next, we'll have a case studies panel moderated by Michelle Box.
Welcome, everyone. It's my pleasure today to first present to you Miss Teresa Morgan. Teresa is an attorney here in Nashville. She's lived in Nashville for about 15 years. She practices with the Morgan-Dale Group. Fun fact about Teresa, she was in the first class at the Belmont School of Law. So welcome, Teresa. We also have Miss Catherine Armistead. I think most of you know Catherine. She's a longtime attorney in the world of conservatorships. Catherine has had some of the more difficult cases that I've ever dealt with, and we certainly have some stories we can discuss here today. She is a graduate of the Nashville School of Law and the Elder Law College. And a fun fact about Catherine is that she grew up in England. So welcome, Catherine. We also have with us today Miss Shelley Handelsman. Shelley is an attorney here in Nashville. Shelley also went to the Belmont College of Law. She also is licensed in Pennsylvania. And a fun fact about Shelley is she is one of my co-chairs of the Nashville Bar Association Probate Committee. And we have also had some difficult cases together. So welcome, everyone. So the first topic I want to talk about today, I think we can kind of throw all these into one. And I'm gonna be a very bad Jeff Mobley today, but most of you who frequently attend the Nashville Bar Association CLE, we have a judges panel. So we have an expert conservatorship panel here today, and it's kind of like playing Hollywood Squares. So I'm going to start with Shelley, and I'll throw this question out to Shelley, and then I will let Catherine and Teresa respond. But in our world, we deal with detainers, foreclosures, tax sales, demolitions. So Shelley, I'll throw this question to you, and then we'll follow up. What do you do when you see that a client has real property?
So I've dealt with this a few times. I'm dealing with it right now. The first thing that I do is go out and look at it and see what I'm dealing with, which sometimes it's pretty awful. And I've been involved in cases with Catherine where some of them have been, before I can sell it, you have to petition the court to get court approval to list it. And then once you actually have a contract, you obviously go back to the court and have the court, you motion for the court to approve it. But before you even can sell it, you get in there and you're wondering, okay, what am I going to do with this? Does any family want it? I've had estate sales before when there's some valuable antiques and stuff in there. I've also had ones where it's just a whole bunch of crap, or they're a hoarder and you just, pay someone. I know both of you have dealt with that, or all of you have. So I've hired people to just dump everything. I've had a lot of different situations, but estate sales have happened. And then you hire someone. I've had other ones just to dump it all. And then once you get through that, really petitioning the court to sell it. And then once they approve that, list it, and hopefully you get a good sales price that you sign a contract and get the court to approve.
Now, Shelley, you mentioned hoarding. If the property such it has no value, is it typically best practice to file a motion with the court to ask to abandon the personal property?
I haven't had to deal with that yet, although the one I'm listing now, I'm wondering if that may happen. And I would probably call you and ask you what to do, because I haven't dealt with it yet. I haven't done that, but Catherine and Teresa may have done that before and had to deal with those situations.
Catherine, Teresa?
Sure. First, Shelley's right. Before you can take any steps regarding your real property, you need to go out there and set eyes on it. Don't go alone if you're a female conservator, especially if this is a situation where you have family involved. Oftentimes, family don't want to deal with the respondent. It's difficult. There may be mental health issues. It's unpleasant. No one wants to deal with that, but they sure do like the money and the property. So just be very careful. Make sure you're covering yourself at all time. I heard someone say earlier that it's a thankless job to be a conservator. I mean, of course, we do get paid, but at the same time, all we have is liability and exposure. So I would encourage you, when you go out there, take your paralegal, take another attorney with you, and video everything. You will go out there to this property and someone who hasn't had a thing to do with the conservator will swear blind that there was a priceless antique in the corner video. Change the locks. Don't rely on anyone to tell you whether or not they have a key or not. Just change those locks, spend that $75 and get it done. You're responsible for this. If the property is destroyed, if there really is an antique in there and it goes missing, you're the one that's going to be in front of the judge explaining why you didn't secure that property. And insurance, make sure that property is insured. It's going to be a different policy because if no one's living there, they will only insure it as an occupied dwelling, but make sure you have that insurance in place. Again, CYA, this is you that are taking responsibility here. Second point, Shelley said it correctly, hoarding. There is an inordinate amount of hoarding. And it's never nice either. Take a change of clothes or change of shoes and keep them in your car. There can be bed bugs. I mean, you just don't want to bring this stuff home. You don't have to go in there yourself and go through everything. The court doesn't want to pay you to do that either. Hire people. Make sure you're overseeing them and that these are people that you trust, and take your video beforehand. But it's so overwhelming when you walk into a house or walk into a conservatorship and you've got a person whose well-being you're responsible for. You're now managing their medical decisions. You're trying to figure out and work with Social Security about their benefits, trying to get them disability, trying to see what kind of pensions they've got. You're trying to deal with banks, getting banks to recognize your letters of authority. And then you walk in this house and it's hoarded and you're responsible for that as well. It's an awful lot. Cut yourself some slack. Hire people who can do the dirty work for you. Get you a dumpster. I agree with Michelle about petitioning to abandon property. But if you have videoed everything, it's quite apparent oftentimes that unopened bank statements from the 70s, that's junk, to put it in the junk. But mainly I think that the key here is to insure the property. I do use a little estate sale company that I like, that's also my realtor. And if you build a relationship with an estate sale company, they'll be able to come in and tell you what has value and what is a waste of time. I find that I have inordinate guilt about these situations when I go in someone's home and I can find myself going down a rabbit hole and not wanting to throw away or their Pyrex dishes or just whatever, because it's their stuff. And, you know, maybe someone will pay $1 for it. No one wants the stuff. If it makes you feel any better, ask the court if you can gift it to charity and maybe get that deduction for their taxes. Teresa?
I agree with everything that's been said. I would say one thing I do when I'm doing the initial inventory and walking through the home that's been discussed, and yes, you film, you take as many photos as you can, write out like that first time you open the door. I always, even a little bit anal, but I like to have the video even watch me walk through the door. Sounds a little crazy, but I don't ever want there to be any allegation that, you know, oh, she'd been in there before or something. So I also, in addition to the inventory and the photos and filming, I write up affidavits as I'm proceeding through the initial stages of a conservatorship, and I'll file sort of like what steps I took with the inventory. And sometimes those get a little detailed, but I'm really kind of speaking to the family members through these affidavits about like what I did and why I did what I did and what primarily got put in the dumpster. And I do think that I tend to be somewhere, I do like to go through things as much as possible with, to me, it's important to be able to state why I did what I did in respect to the individual, because of what Catherine said. It is their belongings, it is their life, it is their, you know, it's difficult to look at two closets filled, walk-in closets filled with clothes that are all from Walmart, but like this was a huge part of this woman's life. And so, you know, do I want to chuck it all in a dumpster? That felt a little disrespectful to me. So this was a strange decision where it might not have been the most efficient thing, but I do think it's going to be important to at least sell it or give it to her friends. So, trying to care for the property in a way that is respectful to the individual, I think usually helps the family situation in the long run too. And then the other reason I like my blow-by-blow affidavits that I file with inventory, that most everyone would tell you is completely unnecessary. But I feel like if my fees for particularly the time I spent doing the inventory in a complete house are questioned, I can say, listen, I thought it was important that I went through everything that was in the office room, every scrap of paper. I thought it was important that I went through these things because she collected jewelry. Like if I spend 5 hours with like this is my last case, 5 hours with a novice jeweler, and I don't want my fees questioned about why. Well, what if there was a $5,000 or $10,000, diamond bracelet in there? It was worth that time to me to go through all of the clearly junk jewelry. So I think that those affidavits that I do in support of an inventory are really covering my butt and also adding a lot of narrative about why I've done what I've done and how I did it.
And I would just add, if you have a larger piece of real property, I had this come up, video the closets, video under the beds, video the crawl space, video the attic. I've had children say that items were in the closet or under a bed. So I know that may seem too thorough, but if you have a very difficult family, I don't think that you can be.
No, in this last house, I had two small fire safes under the bed, and we didn't know they were there until we had the mattress, which was like needed to be thrown away, removed. We didn't know those safes were under there. There ended up being nothing in there but playing cards, but
you never know.
you never know.
I will say
Let's
about
start.
the real property as well, make sure you keep the taxes up to date. I've had one where there was a conservatorship where the conservator had real property in another state in Illinois, and their taxes are astronomical. So first, thanks, Tennessee. But make sure you keep their taxes up to date. And I actually, because their taxes were like $6,000 for a 6-month period, I actually filed a motion I had it pro-non-tunk, but for approval of that, because you don't want to run afoul of the probate master if you've spent a large amount of money either without court approval. And then on the property taxes, there are, especially I found in Illinois, maybe because the taxes are so much money, there are all kinds of different tax relief you can get if you're an elderly person, so that you don't, or a disabled person. And if you don't have the time to get that done prior to paying the taxes, make sure you pay the taxes and go back afterwards and try and get a rebate. But paying the taxes is huge. It's not something, those of us with mortgages, we don't think about that because we pay it all the time. But when you've gotten the house of an elderly person who hopefully their mortgage has been paid off, and you suddenly have to realize you have to pay the taxes, it can be one of those gulp moments. So make sure you keep on top of that.
I'm going to start with you, Catherine. Do you think sometimes it's better just to have an auction and let the auctioneer clean out all the personal property and sell the real property if the client has real and personal property?
Sometimes, again, it depends. I use an estate sale company that's my realtor as well. I have used an auctioneer company that I think sometimes the auctioneers companies don't care as much, and they just kind of like take the job lot. I think it depends on what the condition of the house is and what the condition of the family is. There's all kind. I mean, it's an array. But if you've got a place that's hoarded and that you have spent some time looking through, and that you can say with any degree within a degree of reasonableness, there's nothing of value in there, auction it as is. Absolutely.
Teresa?
I usually I've always listed things with an agent, except for one time I actually did get an amazingly high price from Open Door. And but generally I list with an agent. And in terms of dealing with the tangible personal property and the real property, it's case by case. I mean, that's what I think it's the takeaway from all of this. It's just case by case. And even like being able to say, kind of categorize everything. Listen, I can assess that 80% of this is junk, but I'm going to the 20%. It probably has some sort of marketable value. And I think it's in my person's best interest. The other thing is that I care about concerning your question, Michelle, is what debts are owed at the time. Catherine's brought up property tax, but you know, right now I have somebody who owed the nursing home $25,000 and she'll make it, it'll be fine. I'll definitely have that amount when I get into court to sell the real property, but that's not for another month and a half. Meanwhile, she has some personal property that might be worth $1,000 here, $1,000 there, $100 here or there. So it's sort of, I think it is worthwhile to add up. And, you know, I'm just kind of getting some cash in the door to trickle in to keep the facility happy. So it's, you know, would I do that if she didn't know the debt? Probably not.
Shelley?
You know, I've thought about using an auction before and I haven't done it. I've only done this a few times. I've done it in the States as well, but it's obviously a little bit different. But I've done it where the estate sale was worth it because there were some very valuable things in there. And I actually made more than, or she made more really than I expected her to. And there was tons left at the end that we just had to dump. But I think she probably made off better. And her house was in an area that had a lot of land that was worth a lot of money, even with its horrible condition. So she made really good money doing that. And so I haven't dealt with it the other way, but there may be situations where I do. I haven't done it.
When I've found it's most important to get a title search before you even list the property or try to sell it and clear up any title issues you have initially, especially if you've got somebody you don't know their family history. There may be 3 other individuals that have ownership in the property and you're looking at a partition suit or quiet title. So that's just been my practice, is go ahead and get the title search before I even seek court approval, especially if I have the money to pay for a title search. What do you do about cars? I'm going to start with you, Teresa.
Oh my gosh, trying to get the car from whatever family member has absconded with the car is always an adventure. I like that you started with me, Michelle. I don't think you know this, but I own a towing company. And so this is no joke. Many of the attorneys on here have used me to one of my Shelley just used my business partner to go get a car. Yeah, so reaching out to the family member who usually has the car, if it's drivable. I think you might be referring more to the car in the driveway that really just needs to be sold for scrap value and trying to find the title to said car. You know, I think that there's a really good, you know, it's a good use of a paralegal to spend a lot of time trying to deal with the Department of Revenue or the clerk's office, whoever it is, I forget right now, who gets you the duplicate title to be able to sell it for scrap value at times. I mean, again, trying to make an assessment, it's the same as the tangible personal property question. It's like, is this even worth it? What should I do? I know that there's been discussions in the past about sort of like cars that might have significant value if they were repaired. I would, if there's cash in the estate, I think you have to make an argument to the special master whether or not this is economically efficient. But generally speaking, I think that it's pretty dicey. I mean, we are in a very particular economic climate right now with vehicles, which I think would be very relevant. Like, would it make sense right now to spend $1,000 to repair a vehicle? Probably, absolutely, yes. I mean, the Volkswagen dealership I was at yesterday had 10 used cars on the lot. So it's gonna be worth your time for your respondent. Those are my random thoughts about vehicles. I don't know if that's really what you're after, Michelle. Tends to be a lot of drama and emotion around vehicles at times. They tend to be like, that was my dad's car, that's my brother's car. You can't, you don't get to do that with the car. So at times I've had to rely on, it's one of the times that I've relied heavily on the court to kind of step in. So I'm not always the bad guy, that I have to make it clear to people that this is property that needs to be brought into the conservatorship estate for the benefit of the respondent. I've had to do that because the car was such an emotional touch point.
Thank you. Now I'm going to go to Catherine. And I guess also, what if you have to advise a respondent that they can no longer drive?
Okay.
Oh,
Well, yeah, about the car, again, insurance, make sure you keep that thing insured. I always sell them, do a Kelly Blue Book, get a CarMax, then go to a dealership. The statute says that you don't have to have court permission to sell a vehicle. I like to, depending, I like to, if a car's in really poor condition, you can't get a Kelly Blue Book on that. And in those instances, I have gone to the court with my Kelly Blue Book and my CarMax, but also basically testified that the car won't start and is in poor condition. And I've asked the court to let me sell it for less, which has been approved. Again, it's just about covering yourself.